Hello everyone. Today we are going to revise all 5 units of JavaScript. So the first unit is overview of JavaScript. In this unit, the first important topic is features of JavaScript. So in features of JavaScript, first feature is JavaScript is an interpreted language. JavaScript code is directly executed by browser's JavaScript engine. You don't need to compile it, so it is called as interpreted language. Then the second feature of JavaScript is it is client-side scripting language. This language is primarily used for client-side scripting. That means it directly runs on user's browser and allow web pages to be dynamic and interactive. Third feature of JavaScript is object-oriented programming language. So it supports objects, classes. So it is called as object-oriented programming. Next feature is event-driven programming. JavaScript is designed to respond to the user events like mouse click, key press and different mouse movements. And the last feature over here is dynamic typing. JavaScript uses dynamic typing, that means variable do not need to be declared with type. You can just write let a equal to 10 and the JavaScript engine will automatically detect it as integer. So it is dynamically typed language. This is about features of JavaScript. Next point is different ways to include JavaScript in your HTML. So the first way is to use inline JavaScript. Here, as its name suggests, inline means we are including JavaScript in HTML element. So here you can see we have button element and inside button element we have written JavaScript on click event. So in this way you can include inline JavaScript, but including inline JavaScript is not recommended because it merges HTML with JavaScript and it complicates your code. Next way to include JavaScript in HTML is internal JavaScript. So in internal JavaScript, we place our JavaScript code within script tag in HTML documents head or body section. Here we have only one HTML document, but inside body you can see the script tag, and inside script tag we have written our JavaScript code. So it is little bit separated than inline, but it is in HTML page only. It is useful if you have a short JavaScript codes, you can directly include it within HTML. And the last way to include JavaScript is using external JavaScript. Here we link an external JavaScript file using script tags src attribute. So first we'll create script.js, a separate file, and inside this file we have one function, and now this script.js we have to include in our HTML using script tag src attribute. So this way keeps your JavaScript code completely separate from your HTML, which makes it easier to manage. So in this way we have three ways to include JavaScript: inline, internal and external. Next point is about displaying output. In JavaScript, output refers to process of displaying data to the user or to another system. So there are multiple ways to produce output in JavaScript, and as per our requirement we can choose any method from these. So here we have first method is console.log, then document.write, alert, inner HTML, and in fifth way we have three methods: error, warn and info. So let us see the first one, console.log. This method is used to print message to the web console. This is primarily used for debugging purposes. So whenever you want to show some debugging messages, instead of printing it on web page, we can print it on console. Simply you can use this method using console.log. In parenthesis you have to give your message, and your message will be printed like this on web console. Then the next method is alert method. Alert method displays an alert dialog box with a specified message and OK button. So when you click on OK button, that message or that dialog box will disappear. You can use this method simply like alert, and in parenthesis you can give your message. So this message will be displayed on dialog box along with OK button. The third method to display output is using document.write. This method directly write your message on HTML document. This is often used for testing purposes and should be avoided in modern web development. You can use this method using document.write and in parentheses give the message. This will directly print your message on the web page or on the document. The next method to display output is inner HTML. This is the property, and inner HTML property sets or returns the HTML content of an element. This method is commonly used to update content of web page dynamically. So if you want to change content of your web page at runtime, you can use inner HTML property. So for using inner HTML property, you first have to fetch some HTML element in which you want to set the text, and then you can use inner HTML property to set the message or get the message. So let us understand with this example. Here we have one paragraph with ID output. Now I want to set some text to this paragraph. Right now there is no text inside paragraph. I want to set that text dynamically. So what should I do? First I have to fetch that element using getElementById. by ID. To this method I will pass ID of that particular element, that is output, and then we can use inner HTML property to set the text. So dot inner HTML equal to the message. So as soon as you run this program, you will see this hello world message set to this paragraph. So in this way we can use inner HTML property to display some output. And the last way to display output is using error, warning or information. So if you want to show some error, warning or information on the console, you can use console.error, console.warn or console.information respectively. These methods are similar to console.log, but they are used to log errors, warnings and information message on the console. So when you use error, console.error, you will see this message in red color. If you use console.warn, you will see this message in orange color with triangular symbol, triangular icon. And when you use console.info, this will show you this message as an information. So in this way, we have seen 5 methods to display output in JavaScript. First is console.log, second is document.write, third is inner HTML property, fourth one is alert, and then error, warning and information. Now the next topic is how to accept input in JavaScript. So to accept input, we can use prompt. Prompt method will display a dialog box in which you can enter some input, and whatever input user will enter, it will return that input value. How to use prompt? You can see here we have used prompt, and in parentheses we have given some message. So this message will be displayed on the dialog box along with one text field in which user can type the input. Whatever user will type, we are storing here in user input. So this prompt will return that input and it will get stored in this variable. So whatever input user will enter, we are displaying that input in the console. So that particular input will be displayed. So in this way we can accept input from the user. One more thing, when you use prompt, the return type of this prompt method is always string. So if user enters 10, this is also string. If user enters some string like ABC, this will be also considered as string. So if you are doing some numerical operation, you have to parse this string to convert it to appropriate data type. Now let us understand variables in JavaScript. Variables are like containers that hold some value temporarily. In JavaScript, variables are case sensitive. There are some rules to define variables. It should always start with letter. We cannot start it with number. And in JavaScript, variables are declared with 3 keywords. You can use var or let or const. But all these three variables have different properties, have different rules, have different scopes. Basically, scope is of two types, global and local. But in JavaScript, we also have block scope. Okay, these are some of the examples of variable declaration. In the first section, all invalid variables are given. This is invalid because it starts with number. This is invalid because it starts with dollar, which is used by libraries. This is invalid because it is using hyphen, which is not allowed. Underscore is allowed, but hyphen is not allowed. This is invalid because this variable name contains space in between, and this is invalid because new is keyword, which we cannot use for variable declaration. And these all three variable names are different because, as I said, JavaScript is case sensitive, so small case and capital case will define two different variables. Now in JavaScript there are different ways of defining variable. First is var, then we can also define variable using let, which is most recommended and is used in modern JavaScript. And another way to define is const. So what is difference between them? When you define variable using var, it is local scoped, can be redeclared and is hoisted. Let us see this in detail. This is traditional way to declare variable in JavaScript. It is function scoped, means it is accessible throughout the function in which it is declared. If it is declared outside the function, it becomes global. That means if I have some function add, and inside this function if I am defining some variable using var a is equal to 10. Now I have defined this variable inside the function, so I can use it inside the function. The scope is restricted within this function. But if I define some variable outside the function, this becomes global. Variables declared with var are hoisted and initialized with undefined. So as we have seen the concept of hoisting, what is hoisting? Hoisting is a mechanism where variables, functions, declarations or class declarations are moved, that is called as hoisted, to the top of their scope before the code execution. So at the time of compilation of the code or at the time of parsing of that code, there these variables functions declaration of these variables function are moved to the top, so you can even use them before their definition. But if you try to use them before their definition, it will have some it will have value like undefined. So here in var, if you are defining some variable using var and you are trying to use it before its definition, it will be initialized with undefined. Now one drawback of var is the same variable can be redeclared. So in the same scope, if I say var b is equal to 20 and again if I say var b is equal to 40, this is allowed. Ideally this should not be allowed because it will create confusion, but if you are using var to define variable, it is allowed. But if you are using let or const, it will not allow you to redeclare the variable. Okay, let us see in detail about let. Let is a modern way of declaring variables in JavaScript which is introduced in ES6. It is designed to address shortcomings of var and provide more predictable behavior when working with scopes. Now, when we define any variable with let, it is accessible only within the block in which they are defined. This creates less confusion and provides better encapsulation, and it also avoids unintended side effects. Let variables are hoisted but they are not initialized. Like we have seen in var variables are also hoisted and they are initialized with undefined, but let variables are not initialized. So if I say let a equal to 10 and before this if I say console.log a, it will give me error, that is reference error. and will not give value like var, that is undefined. Variable declared with let cannot be redeclared. So if I already have let a is equal to 10, I cannot do let a is equal to 10 20. This is redeclaration, but I can do a is equal to 20. This is not redeclaration, this is just changing the value. Okay, so this is allowed, but this is not allowed, this is called as redeclaration. So variables declared with let cannot be redeclared in the same scope, which helps prevent accidental overwriting. This was the drawback of var, which is addressed by using let. Now let us see how to define variables using const and what is its properties. The const keyword in JavaScript is used to declare variables whose values cannot be reassigned after their initial assignment. So const is basically a constant where we cannot change the value once defined. Like let, variables declared using const are block scoped. So the scope of const is just like a variable declared using let. When you create a const variable, it must be assigned a value. You cannot just keep it declared, you have to assign it some value. And the value of const variable cannot be reassigned. So if I say const a is equal to 10, after that I cannot say a equal to 20 because this is a const. Okay, instead if I have let a is equal to 10, I can do a is equal to 20 because variables defined using let can be reassigned, but variables declared using const cannot be reassigned. So in this way we have three different ways of defining variable in JavaScript. First is var, second is let, and third is const. Var has function scope, and if defined outside the function it is global scope. Let has block scope. Const is also block scope. Let us move to the next point, data types. So there are two main categories of data types, primitive data type and non-primitive data type. Primitive data types are simplest forms like number, boolean, and non-primitive data types are complex like object, array. Let us go through them. These all are primitive data types in JavaScript. So first, here is string, which is textual data. We can define string directly like this: let greeting, and in double quotes we give message. You can also use a single quote, or you can also use backtick to give the message. All will be of string data type. Then the next data type is number. This is numeric data. It contains both integer and float. So let age is equal to 25 is also a number, and let height is equal to 5.5, this will also a number. So there is no separation between integer and floats in JavaScript. It is all number. Then next data type is boolean. It contains true or false values. So you can define it like let each student true. So true, T small, and false, F small. These are the boolean values. Then next, a different data type is undefined data type in JavaScript. So when you declare some variable but do not assign any value to it, it becomes undefined like this. Here I have declared one variable name and logging the value of name into console. This will give you undefined. So undefined is a data type in JavaScript. Then next is null. It represents intentional absence of value. So when you have one variable and intentionally you want to give it a value null, you can define it like this: let empty is equal to null. So null and undefined are totally different. In undefined, you don't assign any value, and in null, you are explicitly assigning null as a value. Then the next data type is symbol. Symbol is used for unique identifier. The syntax of defining symbol is also a little bit different. Here we define one variable and then we assign it a value like constructor. Here we are using symbol keyword and then in bracket we are giving the value. Mostly this is used in objects to define unique identifiers. And the last primitive data type is big int. So if you want to represent integers beyond the safe range of integers or numbers, you can use big int. There are two ways in which you can define big int. First, define a variable, assign some value, and at the end you can give small n. This will be considered as big int. Or you can define it like this, define a variable equal to, and you can use big int, and in parentheses you can specify the value. Okay, these are the two different ways to define big int. The next category of data type is non-primitive data type. In non-primitive data type we have object, which is collection of key value pairs. You can define object like this, let student. In curly braces you can give key and value pairs. And another non-primitive data type is array, which is list of values. And for defining array we use square brackets, and in square bracket we give multiple values separated by comma. To access these values we use index. If you want to know type of any variable, you can use type of function. It is used to know type of variable. How to use it? First define a variable like this. I have defined one variable, and if I say type of my num, it will give you number. Similarly, we have one more variable my num as string. Here I have given value in double quotes, and if I say type of my num as string, it will give you string because we have enclosed that value in double quotes. So it will be considered as string. Likewise, you can use type of function to know type of any variable. Next topic is operators. So we have all these types of operator in JavaScript like in other language. So here arithmetic operator, assignment operator, comparison operator, string operators, logical operator, bitwise operator, ternary operator and type operator. These all are operators used in JavaScript. Next we have conditional statement. Conditional statements are very useful to check the condition, and based on that condition we can execute some code. So here we have if statement, else statement, else if statement if you have multiple conditions, and we also have switch case. Now to talk about loops, we have for loop, for in loop and for off loop. So basically in JavaScript we have three variations of for loop. This is also important topic from exam point of view, and on the basis of loop programs can also be asked. Then we have while loop and do while loop. This is simple for loop which consists of three parts: initialization, condition, increment or decrement. So you can define it like this: for let I is equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. So whatever code you will write inside for will be executed 5 times. This is simple for loop. Then next variation of for loop is for in. This is used to iterate over properties of an object. So if you have some object and you want to iterate over all the properties, you can directly use for loop like this: for let key in person. So it will give you all the properties of this person one by one. So in each iteration, one property will be accessed by this for loop. Then the next variation of for loop is for off. For off loop is used to iterate over values of an iterable object like array. So if you have array, you can also iterate over this array using simple for loop. But in JavaScript, you have for off loop with which you can also iterate over array. How to use it? For let value of array, this is array name and in value you will get one by one value from this array. So basically in JavaScript we have three variations of for loop: simple for loop, for in loop and for off loop. Then we have while loop. It is used when number of iteration is not known beforehand and the loop should continue as long as the condition is true. Next we have do while loop. Do while loop is similar to while loop, but in this loop body is executed at least once before the condition is tested. So here first loop body is executed and then condition is checked. Now we have some programs which are important from exam point of view. This type of programs can be asked in exam. So we'll just cover them. Here is the first program. Write a JavaScript program that takes a letter as input and checks if it is a vowel or a consonant using switch case. So here first we have accepted input from the user using prompt. Then we have converted that input into lowercase so that we require less cases. So here we'll only check lowercase vowels. In switch case we are passing this letter and we have written 5 cases for 5 vowels. If it is A, E, I, O or U, we are logging into console that this letter is a vowel. Otherwise in default we have written letter is consonant. So if user enters A, it will give it is a vowel. If user enter D, it will give you it is a consonant. And this is a simple program using switch case. Now second program is using conditional statement. Here we have to write a program that takes user's age as input and prints child if age is less than 12, teenager if age is 12 to 18 and adult if age is greater than 18. So again we have taken input from the user using prompt, but now we have to compare this age with some numbers, and as I already explained, prompt will always return you string. We have to parse it to integer. So here we have used parseInt, which will parse or convert your input into integer, and that age we are storing into variable age. Now here we'll check if age is greater than 0, then only we have to check some conditions. Otherwise we will give user a message that please enter a valid age, because age cannot be negative. So if age is greater than 0, we'll go inside and check if age is less than 12. If this condition is true, we are going to print child. Now we have multiple conditions, so we have to use else if age is greater than 12 and age is less than 18, then console.log teenager, otherwise console.log adult. So this program uses multiple conditional statements to check the age and give the message accordingly. Here we have to print this pattern using nested for loops. So here we'll need two for loops. Here first for loop we are going to use for number of rows, and inner for loop we are going to use to print these numbers in each row. In outer for loop we have started with 1 to 5 because we have to print 5 rows, and inside this for loop we have taken one variable row. In this we are going to append one by one number. So in this inner for loop we'll start with 1, and here j is less than I. So if I is 1, we have to print only one number here. If I is 2, we have to start from 1 to 2. Then in third row we have to start with 1 and we will print till 3. So here the condition is j is less than or equal to I and then j plus plus. So in this for loop we are going to append that j, that is 1, 2, 3 to this variable row, and then after this for loop we are going to print that entire row. Once this one row is printed, again this I will be incremented, again it will go on appending values to row, then print the next row. In this way it will iterate 5 times to print 5 rows. So this is simple program for printing patterns using nested for loop. Then the next program is again using conditional statements. Here we are using multiple conditional statements to print grade of the student based on his marks. So first we have accepted marks from the user and we have converted that marks into integer, and then we are checking if marks is greater than 85 and less than 100, then grade is A. So according to the conditions given in the question, we are checking all those conditions here and accordingly printing marks on the console. And the next program is to take a number n as input and calculate sum of first n natural numbers using a loop. So here again we'll use for loop, or we can use while loop also, but here in this program we have used for loop. We have accepted a number from user. To verify that number, we have checked if number is greater than 0 and if number is not NaN. This is NaN function checks if user has entered number or a character. If user enters some character, is none will give you true, that is not a number, and if user enters number, is none will give you false. So here we want number, that is why we have checked condition not is none num. So if it is a number and greater than 0, then initialize one variable sum equal to 0. Then again inside for loop we will iterate from 1 till that number which we have accepted from user, and we will go on adding that number into the sum, and finally we'll print the sum. If this condition gets false, this if condition gets false, it will go into else and print enter valid positive integer. In this way we can print sum of n natural number. Here we have added one more step to our program to verify the number. And these are some of the important questions from this unit. Thank you. All the best.